Sorry if the end of the last video got a little bit screwed up. Parter started barking, and so when I went to pause it, I'm not entirely sure what happened with the video, but we're just going to pick up here talking about gametes. So the haploid cells that are produced through meiosis will develop into mature gametes. You know them better as eggs or sperm. Okay, so they mature through a process called gametogenesis. Okay, because of course they had to come up with a difficult to say word that basically means gametes being created. Okay, it is the production of gametes. So gametogenesis differs between males and females, which you might expect simply because it's producing two different types of gametes. Okay, so in males it's a little bit simpler. Okay, gametogenesis in males results in the production of sperm cells, and while it's going through these divisions, these stages of these different stages of meiosis, it actually divides the cytoplasm relatively equally. Okay, now there isn't a whole lot of waiting time between the different stages of meiosis. Okay, so there's not a whole lot of growth time in between, which keeps the sperm cells relatively small. Okay, as they mature, they actually become more streamlined and more modal. Okay, so it means that they can move faster and there's less resistance against them moving because they're more basically aerodynamic, even though they aren't going to be in air. Okay, so with sperm, it's a relatively simple process. You're going to get going through a single germ cell division of meiosis, okay, the two stages of meiosis, you're going to get 4 sperm cells that are all going to be roughly the same size. Okay, so sperm primarily contribute just DNA to an embryo. Okay, there's not a whole lot else there. There might be a couple organelles hanging out in the sperm cell, but most likely it's just the nucleus, okay, and a little bitty bit of cytoplasm. Okay, egg cells are kind of different. Okay, so gametogenesis in females results in the production of a single egg cell and what are called polar bodies. Okay, so here you're going to get a very uneven splitting of the cytoplasm. Okay, so when you go through the first round of division in meiosis, one of the cells is going to basically steal as much of the cytoplasm, organelles, everything from the other cell as possible. Okay, so one cell is basically going to just get the nucleus and then like a little bit of cytoplasm and then the cell membrane around it. The other cell is going to get the nucleus, whole lot of cytoplasm, and then the cellular membrane. Okay, now the smaller one, the one that barely got anything out of this division, isn't going to be able to survive like that. Okay, so it is actually going to die off. It is called a polar body. Okay, and then when you go through the second round of division, it's much the same way. Okay, so you get the egg cell, or the part of this that's actually going to develop into the mature egg cell is going to take as much of the cytoplasm as it can. Okay, so it's going to leave another polar body behind, which again is going to die off. Okay, so during meiosis, the egg gets most of the contents. Okay, the other cells are going to form polar bodies and die. And this is because the egg cell really has to bring the DNA, cytoplasm, and the organelles into the embryo. Okay, so if it did an equal division between the cell, so if both of the daughter cells here got the same amount of cytoplasm, same amount of organelles, okay, it would have to have a really long interphase period in order to grow up to a good size again when it could divide. Okay, and then after dividing again to get to the haploid cell that has only one copy of DNA, okay, it would again have to wait quite a while to get to another good size. Okay, so this is kind of a way of getting around that issue. All right, so from one germ cell in an egg gametogenesis, you're only going to get one egg. okay? Whereas in gametogenesis in males, one germ cell will produce 4 sperm cells, okay? So when the egg and the sperm combine, right, all of the cytoplasm and the organelles came from the mother, came from the egg, okay? So you might hear every once in a while somebody in the news talking about mitochondrial DNA and tracing the maternal line, okay? This is what they're talking about. So if you remember, the mitochondria is one of those weird organelles that actually has its own DNA, okay? But because the mitochondria are passed on through the eggs, okay, you can actually trace mitochondrial DNA through the female line. And they've actually proven genetic relations between some kind of distant people. I know they've determined remains of like monarch family or long lost members of a royal family somewhere through mitochondrial DNA. Okay, so there's a lot that goes into that, but basically this is where that idea comes from. Okay, it's because the mitochondria are going to be passed on by the mother, not by the father. Okay, so that is it for this section. So there is meiosis.